China has launched what it's calling major military drills surrounding Taiwan, using naval, army, air, and rocket units to encircle the island. It is releasing a lot of video for the world to see exactly what it's doing. As part of its exercises, China says it will conduct live fire drills. Taiwan is accusing Beijing of military intimidation. As we know, China has long made claims to the island and appears to be flexing its muscle after the U.S. announced a multi-billion-dollar plan to sell weapons to Taiwan. This afternoon, President Trump, however, downplayed the chances of China taking military action. Well, I have a great relationship with President Nintz, and he hasn't told me anything about it. I certainly have seen it, but he hasn't told me anything about it. And I don't believe he's going to be doing it. I was doing naval exercises for 20 years in that area. Now, people take it a little bit differently, but in fact larger than they're doing right now. Let's get perspective from the region now. I'm joined by CNN Senior, who is reporting extensively Taiwan from Taiwan, where he's based. He's now on assignment in Thailand. First question. Will, you've been following these exercises for years, and the fact is, they are getting bigger and more frequent. How does Taiwan view these exercises? Well, obviously they're concerned and trying to sound the alarm globally that exercises today could be real military action tomorrow. These are, as of the latest count from the Taiwan Defense Ministry, the second largest that we've seen that they've reported to date. The largest was back in October 2024, when there were 153 aircraft that were spotted near Taiwan in a 24-hour period. We've got 130 military planes spotted along with 22 ships as of the latest update a few hours ago from Taiwan's defense ministry. So it wouldn't shock me if these do become the largest. You've already seen the video. The really disruptive thing is going to be these live fire exercises today, where they're actually going to be using live ammunition out in the open sea, but they've actually had to shut down. In fact, some of the flights, about 1,000 flights, could be affected. So if we had tried to fly in here today from Taiwan, there's a chance, Jim, we wouldn't have made it in. So certainly disruptive and not believed to be leading to an actual military conflict at this stage. But of course the big fear is that these drills keep pushing the line closer and closer to that red line. This is not the first time we've seen China ratcheted up military drills in response to actions by the U.S. Of course, Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island, you remember, you saw a big spike in activity after that. Now you have this weapons sale from China's point of view. How significant do they see those U.S. weapons sales to Taiwan? Well, obviously, this is the reason that they're giving, maybe not publicly, but a lot of people are speculating. This is the reason why they're doing these drills now. But as you correctly point out, they've held military drills 6 times since Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in 2022. And they have been getting larger, they have been getting closer to Taiwan, they've been considered more aggressive. But this is the kind of thing that requires months of planning and organization, and then essentially they decide when the weather conditions are right, and there are conditions happening geopolitically that they deem suitable to send a strong message. That's when they decide to do it. So obviously they had these plans in place for a while. They're now choosing to do it just days after a record $11.1 billion arms sale between the US and Taiwan. A massive weapons sale that Beijing has condemned. But also, let's not forget, there have been a lot of simmering tensions, not even simmering, really boiling over tensions between Japan and China. And so the fact that they're deliberately trying to show that they can block foreign forces, foreign military assets, from getting close to Taiwan, the fact that they're trying to demonstrate that so clearly this time, it's a signal not just to the US, but likely to regional allies like Japan as well. Jingo, no question. Will Ripley, thanks so much for joining. Well, joining me now is Beth Santa, former Deputy Director of National Intelligence and CNN National Security Analyst. Beth, good to have you. Great being here. I wonder if China is testing Trump a little bit with these exercises, knowing that Trump's priority is keeping this trade truce with China in place as best he can, and that perhaps Beijing feels it could push the limits a little bit more with military action around Taiwan. Well, definitely, I think that Beijing is always looking for pushing the limits and seeing how far they can go. And as Will was talking about, why we've seen this ratcheting up of the size and scope of these types of military operations, but really the daily flights that are coming across and halfway across the strait that separates Taiwan from China. And so all of this is part of, creating this new normal. And now is a great time. One, because the president is busy and, he's the focal point of so many things. And secondly, because they know that President Trump right now is trying to keep the peace with China. And they want to keep very much this administration, this trade truce that was agreed in Seoul or in South Korea. And they want to have this summit in April in Beijing. And they don't want anything to mess that up. And so, of course, he's going to downplay this U.S. issue. When he was asked about the exercises, he downplayed the chances that she will take military action against Taiwan, and he even incorrectly said that these exercises were no bigger than those in the past. It strikes me that the pattern's quite similar to how he approaches Vladimir Putin, where you downplays, for instance, Russian military activity in Ukraine, but often scolds Zelensky. How does Beijing view this? Do they see that as Trump subtly giving them a pass? Well, we don't know. I do think that right now, when you look at the behavior of China toward Japan and the call that presidency had with President Trump, which reportedly was to ask President Trump to call Prime Minister Takeuchi, to tell her to back down and to apologize, which she has not. So I think that they do see an open door here in terms of pushing President Trump to allow them to have this sphere of influence, right? And they see that both Putin and Xi and President Trump very much kind of think in these terms. And so they have greater range for action. I think that falls under what has been a theory about the Trump foreign policy, right? Is that he does see a sphere of influence globe where let China have its patch to some degree, Russia its patch, and we, the US, are going to take maximum action against Venezuela or even say Greenland. I mean, do you see the roots of that? There certainly are parts of this administration that feel that way, who feel that way. But then you look at the national security strategy, and a lot of the language on the Pacific is very similar to the last two national security strategies. Biden and the first Trump administration, where it's talking about making sure that another power not mentioned, not named China, but that another power cannot dominate this area because it's so important to the United States in terms of global commerce and, of course, Taiwan. 90% of our high-end semiconductors